Hello, everybody. How are you?
Hi, everyone.
Welcome. So very nice to meet you guys here. We're still waiting for everyone to show up. But yes, this is going to be our CELPIP grammar workshop. So hopefully you are in the right place. We're just waiting for people to join us. And so we should probably start around 6:05, just to give enough time for everybody to show, because not everybody is as punctual as us. But in any case, I'll tell you a little bit about who we are. So my name is Maciej Blazik, and I am the director of Summerhill Online Academy, an online language school. It's a post-COVID language school that I created to meet with the market for online language preparation. And Summerhill Online Academy specializes in CELPIP and IELTS preparation. So we specialize in permanent residency and citizenship, entry-level language proficiency examination training. And with me is Anna Baxter.
Hi. Nice to meet everyone today, and thank you, Maciej, for that lovely entrance there or introduction. As Maciej mentioned, my name is Anna Baxter, and I work at Paragon Testing Enterprises. So we actually administer and we develop two tests, which is the CELPIP test, which we're going to talk a little bit about more in detail today, especially for the writing section, and also the CALE test, which is another Canadian proficiency test that we have, but that one's specifically an academic test for university and college purposes. But today we're going to focus on CELPIP writing. So thank you for having me here today. It's always a pleasure to be here. I think we've I don't know how many presentations we've done together, but we've done quite a bit.
5 or 6. We've done about 5 presentations. And again, if you're interested about some of our other past workshops, we've done a workshop on listening, reading, writing, speaking. So we're currently just focusing on doing more workshops that are more specific in terms of skills. So our workshops are kind of more than just sort of general kind of orientation sessions. They are kind of lessons. They are full lessons. So you will be learning a lot of very useful skills today. So this will be a full-fledged lesson for us.
It's like a course
I hope you're ready. I hope you're caffeinated, because this is going to be a doozy. If you have any questions after this, after our workshop, you can go and find me at summerhillonlineacademy.com. And for Anna, if you have any questions, please contact Anna at info@celpip.ca. So any kind of questions, especially these days, for the last couple of days, we've had some issues with the CELPIP website, right, Anna?
Yes, we have, but temporarily it's already back online, but it's on and off because we've had such a big demand for these CELPIP tests lately that it was temporarily offline, but now it looks like it's back online. And I think it's now more permanent, because before they gave a message that it was temporarily online, but now everything seems to be working fine. But we're always contacting people, and we're making sure if you go to any of our social medias, whether it's Instagram or Facebook, we'll make sure to post any updated information about what's going on. And people are right now able to register for May, I believe, because it seems like April is pretty full now. But if people are still trying to look for dates in May, we still have something available, but it's going pretty quick. So if you're interested in doing it anytime soon, then try to register ahead of time. So for today's presentation, it will be a little bit more interactive. So we will be asking you questions, and if you are able to respond, that would be fantastic. You can just use the question box that you have there. It should be on the right-hand corner. You can use the question box just to respond to some of the questions or the questions that Maciej will be asking you while we're doing the presentation. So I'll be participating as well. And if you have any general questions, either about CELPIP or other inquiries, maybe about what Maciej is doing, or just questions for me, I will be responding to the questions while we do the presentation. So please, Mache, take it away.
Okay, fantastic. So guys, if you have any questions, I'm going to be focusing on conducting this lesson and this presentation, but Anna is going to be monitoring the question boxes,
Yeah.
the chat boxes. So if you have any questions throughout the presentation, and there's going to be a lot of content, a lot of questions I'm sure you're going to be asked, don't be shy, ask a question. I'm here to help you out. And so if you have any questions throughout this presentation, please go ahead and just ask me, and I will be doing my best. Now, this is going to be a huge presentation. This is one of the biggest workshops I've ever attempted to do. And I also find that this is actually one of the most useful ones. So this is going to be a grammar lesson, and we're going to be focusing mostly on punctuation and some of the most common mistakes in terms of grammar and connective usage. So we're using these connectives that my students usually have. So I've assembled a very nice list of common issues. So hopefully you'll be finding this enlightening. And these rules, these punctuation rules, it's very surprising because not everybody knows these punctuation rules, even if they're native language speakers. So being able to punctuate correctly will improve your overall professional presentation, especially if you're working with clients, if you're working with any sort of formal environment, talking to your professors at school, whether you're talking to a lawyer, whether you're talking to a member of the government or to your clients in any public life, this is any segment of life, this lesson is going to help you very much. So we're going to go ahead and start out with an overview of the basic rules for punctuation. Then we're going to do some mini punctuation exercises to get you guys all involved and see how you guys are doing. Then we're going to go through most common punctuation and grammar mistakes. And if we have time in this 1 hour long presentation, I may consider doing some more mini punctuation exercises, but it will depend on how much we will be able to consume. And then at the end, I'll save at least 15 to 20 minutes for a brief Q&A session so that we can answer any of your burning questions, whether about grammar, about CELPIP, about writing, or even anything else you can ask for Anna as well. So here we go. So let's talk about basic punctuation. So why is punctuation important? These periods, commas, and capital letters. Why is really punctuation important? First of all, punctuation does add clarity. This is very important. It does add clarity. But also, if your punctuation is incorrect, you actually can produce a very opposite, a very different meaning than what is intended. And of course, this is very important for CELPIP because yes, even in a CELPIP writing task, you can make mistakes, but your meaning needs to be clear. So if your meaning is obscure, that's really what gets you, right, Anna? Anna, we can't hear you. Oops.
There we go. Sorry about that.
Right.
Yes. What I was trying to say is that yes, punctuation is going to be very important. I mean, it's part of the assessment. I mean, it's not specifically the only one, but it is an important factor to have for your general overall performance. So when you're writing structures, even if they're complex sentences or basic sentences, we still need to make sure that the punctuation is correct.
And what's really surprising, it means so much for CELPIP if you have good punctuation, but it's actually surprisingly pretty easy to learn. It's like riding a bicycle because these are specific rules. So, and also punctuation adds tone. And and if you've ever seen any of my past presentations, especially for writing, tone is very important for CELPIP, especially when you're communicating with an audience. Are you polite? Or what's your professional tone? That's what we're talking about in writing and for speaking. And so, I mean, think about it. Last time you got an email from someone in your own native language or in English, and you found punctuation mistakes, how professional do you think they are? How professional do they present themselves? And again, it's just a bunch of rules. It's just a few simple rules that we're going to learn today. And you can apply this lesson in every professional aspect of your life. And what I also like about punctuation is actually it's like a teacher of grammar rules. If you know your punctuation, that means you know your sentence structure. You understand parts of sentences. And if you understand parts of sentences better, you're able to avoid grammar mistakes a lot better, right? So we're just gonna go straight to this. So if you saw the title of today's presentation, this is how to connect ideas better. So when we're connecting ideas, we use these transitional expressions. Sometimes they're called cohesive devices or transitional statements or transitional phrases. But really, there's just so many of them. There's so many in them in the English language. There's quite a lot of transitional phrases. But usually, we can take all of these transitions and we can just divide them into three connectors. And these are called conjunctions, sometimes known by the acronym FANBOYS, which stands for and, nor, but, or, yet, so. Next, subordinates. Subordinates are very important because they create complex sentences, and CELPIP loves subordinates. CELPIP loves complex sentences because they are just they are one of those markers of in most standardized tests that show a higher grammar. So sometimes I get students to ask me, "Oh, I've used many tenses. Do I get a higher score?" And the answer is not necessarily. It's not how many
Well,
tenses is used, it's how flexibly correctly you use them. And subordinates create complex sentences, and you do have to use those tenses correctly at that particular point. Anna, you were saying something.
yes, well, all I wanted to mention is that the raters, or the examiners, the people who are going to give you the scores, I mean, there's four major sections that they're looking for. One is the content and coherence, another is vocabulary, and what you're mentioning right now is readability. So when you're talking about readability, you're talking about all the transitions within sentences, between paragraphs. So all of that is going to be very important because we can see if you have a good control of the language. So we just want to make sure that the information is not just correct, but it's all the punctuations, all the information, all the connectors, everything is important. So one of the major sections that the raters will be looking at is readability. So it's important to note that.
And there is under the handout section, you'll actually find a copy of the of I believe it's called the level descriptors, which shows some of the options. But I don't want to get too off topic here. So there are three major connective: conjunctions, subordinates, and finally transitions. And again, the transitions again. These are phrases that usually we begin on a new sentence. And transitions are also excellent because they help us when we're starting new paragraphs. Transitions like first of all, in addition, furthermore, in conclusion. So they're very useful when you're doing when you're starting a new paragraph. But again, we're going to take a look at these, and these three different connectors have three separate rules for punctuation. And we're going to go ahead and learn them now. And when I talk about punctuation, I'm not going to talk about exclamation marks or quotation marks. I'm only going to talk about periods, commas, capital letters. That's it. That's all we're talking about. And really, that's all you really need to do. You don't need to write any quotations or anything like that in CELPIP. All you need to do is know those periods, commas, and capital letters. So first of all, let's start with simple sentences. A simple sentence is basically just one sentence. Right? One sentence. And usually when you have just one simple sentence, you do not need any commas. This is important. So you do not need any commas if you have a simple sentence. For example, my brother ate a pizza and ice cream. Now, notice in the simple sentence, we have a conjunction and that joins two phrases together. But the word ice cream is not a complete sentence. Right? This is just one sentence. So who ate, so brother ate a pizza and ice cream. Who ate ice cream? It's the brother. It connects to the same subject. So in most situations, when we have a simple sentence, one sentence, no commas in one sentence, even if we're joining phrases together with a conjunction and or but so. The only exception, of course, as we can see here, is we have a list of things. We have more than two things. And again, when we're thinking about a list, when we put a comma between the things that we're listing. I went to the supermarket and bought eggs, fresh milk, red bananas, oranges. We're listing things. We put a comma between the things that we're listing. You probably might have heard about the Oxford comma. Now, the Oxford comma is used to separate ideas even when they're joined together. So in a sentence, of course, we can see that it's these ideas that we're listing are really simple. They're just short ideas. Milk, bananas, oranges, right? They're just phrases, right? But in an Oxford comma, we use an Oxford comma in academic writing when we're connecting big ideas. For example, a proper marketing strategy depends on a firm understanding of customers and services. But that's one thing here, changing markets and fluctuating trends. That's a second idea and a creative approach to building your client base. Now, what we have here are big ideas, and some of these big ideas have the word and, or, but, so in them. But we're separating those three ideas with the commas and not putting a comma in between, separating the individual ideas. So we want to put customers, comma, and services, because customer service is one idea. It's just one idea that we're separating. So that would be the exception for using a Oxford comma. Okay. Any questions that we have so far?
We're good so far.
Good,
and
good.
just
So
to let
yeah.
Yes, and just to let people know, if you're this information that we're giving you, that video will be recorded and will be sent to you after the presentation. So if you
So
didn't
it's
write
a quick
all this
review.
information, because there's a lot of great information that Maciej's giving you, you can repeat the video later on.
Thank you very much. And I will also be posting that on YouTube eventually, so you'll be able to find that on my channel as well. But since you're here, perfect. So in any case, compound sentences. Now, compound sentences are two sentences joined together with a conjunction and or but. So example here, my brother is handsome but stupid. How many sentences are there? Right? It's just one sentence. My brother's handsome but stupid. But notice in the second sentence, my brother is smart, but my sister is stupid. Now, if we take a look at these two sentences, these are actually two full sentences. There's a subject and the verb, subject and the verb. Now, if you're just joining one phrase with and, or, but, so, you do not need a comma. But when you're joining two sentences together with and, or, but, so, you have to put a comma when you're joining two complete sentences. We can take a look more examples here. My sister likes hamburgers and loves going to restaurants. Now, the phrase loves going to restaurants, that's not a full sentence now, is it? Because loves going to restaurant, that just starts with a verb. That's just a verbal phrase, right? But we don't have a subject connected to it except for my sister. So my sister loves going to restaurants. My sister likes hamburgers. This is just one sentence. We don't need a comma. But I just added that pronoun she in the sentence follows it. And now she loves going to restaurants. That's a complete sentence. Now we would need a comma to join those two phrases together, those two sentences together. Okay. So basically, we'll take a look at this. Any questions so far? I think that we're at the easy process.
No, everything seems to be good. But if you
So
do have questions or you need us to stop and ask a question, you can do it anytime.
Yeah. So just moving on, complex sentences are sentences that use these subordinating conjunctions, also known as subordinates or subordinations. Now, subordinates create complex sentences, and a complex sentence is a sentence that has a dependent and independent clause. Let me just show you an example here. Okay, so let's take a look at the sentence, I am hungry. I am hungry. Is that a complete sentence, do you think? I am hungry. Yeah, I'm hungry. Sure, that's a complete sentence, right? I'm hungry. But as soon as you put a subordinate on top of that, because I am hungry, whenever I am hungry, if I am hungry,
you need more information.
yeah, something is missing, right? This is a dependent clause. We need another phrase to complete the idea. Because I am hungry, I will eat. In this instance, I will eat is the independent clause. And because I'm hungry is the dependent clause that needs another phrase to finish it, right? And it doesn't matter what subordination you start your sentence with. The rule for punctuation with complex sentences, if you start a sentence with a subordination, you have to put a comma between the dependent and independent clause. But if you put your subordination in the middle, that is, if you start with an independent and dependent clause, you do not put a comma. A comma would be wrong. So golden rule, you do not put a comma before because, even though, although if it's joining an independent and a dependent clause. Okay, so it doesn't, this is the same rule for all subordinations. And at this point, if you're still having some problems, I do invite you to go on YouTube and take a look at Teresa Folleron's story of a comma, or the comma story. It's a very excellent video by Teresa Folleron. I've been showing it to my students, and basically she kind of gives a review of punctuation through a very cute animation. But basically, if you think about subordinations, if you put a subordinate in the middle, it's able to balance both of those two clauses, both of these two ideas. But if you start a sentence with a subordination, well, the situation is not so balanced anymore, right? So we can think about the sentence being a little bit longer on the left side versus the right side. So it's kind of tipping over. But that extra comma, right, in the middle, when you start with a dependent and an independent clause, helps to keep those two sentences balanced, right? So again, you would put a comma. If you start with subordination, you put a comma between the dependent clause. But if you put a subordination in the middle, you don't need a comma. Okay? And just moving here, some more examples. So although the weather is ugly today, comma, my friends and I will go to the beach. But my friends and I will go to the beach, although the weather is ugly today, right? We wouldn't need a comma in this regard. Okay? And again, you can take a look at those examples there. So in any case, we're moving again to transitions. These are the final connectives that we're going to look at, and transitions are very popular. There's so many transitions, and you do have to get them right. So it's on the one hand, on the other hand, not in the other hand. So we can't make these up. We can't create them. They're very standardized. You have to be able to use them correctly. But the thing with transitions is when you have a transition, you don't need a dependent-independent clause. A transition just begins in front of a complete sentence. And this is why it's very useful for starting a new paragraph. And when we think about transitions, mostly we begin transitions from the first sentence. We start with a capital letter and comma after the complete transition. On the other hand, comma, from my point of view, comma, as a case in point, comma. So full transition, you put a comma after full transition. You start with a capital letter. However, for transitions, you can start a transition, you can start a sentence with a transition, but you can also put a transition in the middle, and you can also put a transition at the end. So here's an example. I really love to cook. My girlfriend, however, does not like to cook. And in this instance, what we're doing is we're separating the subject and the verb, and we're putting the transition between two commas, which is basically similar to how you would be punctuating adjective clauses, because in this respect, the however works in the same position as an adjective clause. Now, if you're doing adjective clauses, remember, you put a comma between the two, between the adjective clause and the two other connecting sentences. And be careful, because the subject, the tense of the verb, right? The verb must agree with the original subject, right? It has to agree with the original subject, not the subject of the last adjective clause. So a lot of people make mistakes with this. But in any case, you can use this as well. So you can use, however, you can use transition at the beginning, in the middle, sentence between subjects and verbs. You can even you put transitions at the end of sentences. And yes, you can use a semicolon when you're joining, when you're putting a transition in the middle, but don't abuse this, right?
So what would you recommend here if people are looking for transitions or a list of transitions so that at least they can go through it, see if they understand it, see if they're able to use it on their own? What would you recommend?
Absolutely. There are lots of lists of transitions you can find. If you have problems finding them, you can email me and I'll be happy to share some resources with you. But there are lots of transitions online. The problem is that they're just usually complete lists like we see here, but there are no rules as to identifying whether transitions, subordinations, and conjunctions. And again, conjunctions are easy. There's only 7. there are many subordinates. You can usually identify a subordinate by the sound, right? If you hear a dependent clause, you know it's a subordinate. And for transitions, we know it. They just start new sentences. If it's a complete sentence and it starts with a phrase, you know it's a transition, right? So again, there's a lot of lists out there, but they usually are not divided into transition subordinations. Again, conjunctions are a little bit easier. They're the same rules. But in any case, we talked about these three connectors: conjunctions, subordinates, and transitions. And if you can learn the rules for these punctuating these three kinds of connectors, these three kinds of phrases, you can basically punctuate any sentences. And we're going to take a look at that. So we're actually going to do a little bit of practice today and see if you guys can get this. See if you guys can remember some of these lessons and how
If
well
you're
you can
able to
punctuate.
respond, just type it up. So then that will help us up to respond to these questions. So it's going to be a little bit interactive. So we do ask for your participation.
Right. And so just before we get started on this one, I just want to review. When we take a look at subordinates, when we take a look at conjunctions, subordinates, and transitions, sometimes they do the same thing. For example, but, although, and however means the same thing. And in these three sentences, it does the same thing. But again, the punctuation is very different, right? Punctuation is very different. Now, when we're joining two sentences with and or but so, Mary is tall, but Jack is short. Jack is short. Complete sentence. Mary is tall. Complete sentence. We're joining them together. You must put a comma between the conjunction. However, so as you can see, these are complete sentences. We have to put a comma between them. But if you just have one subject and two objects or two predicates or just two verbs or two adjectives joined together with and or but so, right? We have only one subject here. We have two phrases here, and that phrase connects with the original subject. So this is actually just one sentence. It's a simple sentence, so we would not put any commas here. With subordinates, on the other hand, if you start a sentence with a subordination, although, if, when, while, even though, you put a comma between the dependent and independent clause. But if you put the subordination in the middle of the sentence, you don't need a comma. And that's pretty much it. For transitions, we always start a transition with a capital letter and put a comma. If you put the transition in the middle of your paragraph, in the middle of the sentence, then you can just use a semicolon. You don't have to use a capital letter. So I think we are ready to see how well you can do. And I find that sometimes when you're looking at these rules, they're hard to remember, they're hard to connect, but when you're actually trying, that's really where the learning process comes from. So let's go ahead and take a look at sentences. We have just 7 sentences, and we want to see if we can connect them together. So let's take a look. And again, you can just type here, and you can just type the word under which you think we need a comma. So where do we need a comma? I think I'll just do the number 1 for you, okay? Just as an example. John went to the grocery store, bought fresh vegetables, and made a salad. Would we need any commas here? Okay, let me just see if anyone can answer that. Do we need any commas in number 1?
So which word would you feel that you need a comma right after? Is it after grocery, after store, after vegetables? Where do you think we would need a comma? So just go ahead and write just the word so that we would understand where a comma would be right after that word, that specific word.
And if you're not confident, oh, it says don't need any commas. Okay,
oh,
so
I like that.
Shelly says here she doesn't need any commas. Okay, very good. Absolutely, we actually do need a comma. And we do need a comma after store because there's only one subject, John, and there are 3 verbs. There's 3 actions. John went to the grocery store, bought fresh vegetables, and made a salad. John did 3 things. So this is actually a list. If it was John went to the grocery store and made a salad, we wouldn't need a comma because there's only 2 phrases. But because there's more than 2 things in our list, we do need a comma. But thank you very much for participating. Very good.
This is a great practice. It's like a refresher course for me.
A lot of us forget about this. Even native language speakers forget about this, but it's so important for CELPIP. Okay, number 2. Do we need a comma? Yes or no? If you think we need a comma, how many? Just write a number, 1, 2, 3 for these. For number 2, do we need a
So
comma?
first question, yes or no? Do we need a comma? So you can
Do we
put
need
yes
a comma
or no.
for number 2?
I'm thinking no because we're not getting, yes, we got a no.
Okay, we got to know. Anybody else except for Shelly? Anyone else who wants to participate? Don't be shy. Try it out.
We
What do you
actually
think?
have
Do we need
two
a comma for
Shelleys
number 2?
today watching us. I can see there's
I believe so.
two different people with the same first name.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Any other responses? Just put yes or no. Nice and simple.
Okay, I'm looking
Okay.
here. I'm getting some no's. At least one no here. And the answer is, yeah, absolutely no. We don't need any commas here. Absolutely.
Yay.
John was very smart, but didn't like to study at school. Who didn't like to study at school? John. Right? This is just one phrase. What about number 3? Do we need any commas for number 3?
So 3, yes or no. You can even put Y just to make it easier, so you don't have to put the full word if it's just a Y or an N. Well, it looks like we have a few Ys.
Okay. Right, very good. We do need a comma. Notice here, Mary was tall, John was short. Classic example, we saw it before. We have 2 sentences joined together with and or but. So absolutely, we need a comma here. These are going to get a little bit more tricky here. So again, yes, if you think there's a no, that you don't need anything, put 0. Maybe that will help. If you don't think you need any commas, just put 0. If you think you need 1 or 2 commas or 3 commas, put the number as well. Let's take a look for number 4. Do we need any commas for number 4?
So we have a 1, that's good.
Okay, we got 1.
We have 1, 0, got another 1. We have more 1s coming in.
Okay, some of you guys are very smart. You're getting this. So because is a subordinate. It's a complex, it creates a complex sentence. Because the lesson was over, that's a dependent clause. Independent clause, the students left the class. Absolutely, we need a comma when we're joining a dependent and independent clause. What about number 5? Easy. Do we need any commas for number 5?
So we got a 0. We have a question here. Where do you have those sentences?
So are you able to see my screen at this time? Is everybody able to see my screen?
0. Is everyone able to see the screen? Okay, we got a few people that say yes.
Okay, good,
You should
good.
be able to see the screen.
So the sentences that I'm getting here, I just wrote them into this PPT. So I don't have another handout for these, but again, it's just in the PPT. We are going to send this video for you. It is recorded, so you'll be able to review some of these, right? But
So
in any case, for number 5,
many people said yes, they can see your screen. So we've got 0 as most people wrote 0 as a response. No comma.
So that's right. Very good job. So everybody was listening. Absolutely, we don't need a comma here because is in the middle, right? So it's just the same sentence as number 4, but we put the because in the middle of the sentence. A little bit harder, much trickier. Number 6. Do we need any commas? And if we do, how many?
You can just go ahead, put a number. We've got 2. Let's see if we have anyone else. We have 1, 1. We got a few 2s coming in. Okay. We've got a few 2s. 2 seem to be
2
dominant.
is the popular, and 2 is in fact the winner. Absolutely, we need a 2. When is a subordinate, right? So when is a subordination? It creates a dependent clause. When the class was over, comma, the students went home. And then we can see there's a conjunction but, and after that, it's a complete sentence. The teacher stayed. It's just a subject and verb, but it is a complete sentence. The teacher stayed. She slept. I ate. As long as you have a subject and verb, it's a complete sentence. And again, we have a complete sentence after but. So very good. Absolutely. Okay. Much more complicated for number 7.
This one looks even more complicated.
How many commas we need for number 7? I'll give you guys a hint. Ooh, we got
Okay,
three
oh
comments.
wow, we got a
We
3.
got a 3.
Oh, one of them is unable, I think, says I can only see your cameras. I
Okay.
That might be a setting that you
You know what?
have.
I'm just going to unpause and then I'm going to start with that, isn't it? Hopefully that's going to help. Can you guys, would that reset things? Because I just reset it a little bit.
Or I can take out my camera if that makes it easier, and then they just see the lesson screen. So I'm going to take out my camera, see if that helps. I don't know if Mache, you would like to do the same or you would prefer to
Yeah,
stay on.
I'm gonna stop sharing my webcam as well. Okay. And
Okay.
did that help a little bit, guys?
For the ones that were unable to see it, can you now see the screen? Okay, I got a yes. So yes. Okay,
Okay.
perfect. All
So
right.
we're
So
gonna
you'll
stick it
just be
like this.
listening to our voices. That's okay.
So that's okay. So there you go. So again, yes, absolutely. So for number 7, I'll give you guys one hint here. For number 7, nevertheless is a transition.
Yeah.
Nevertheless is a transition. So if you guys remember the rules, how many commas?
So we still have 3s coming up and
All
few
right.
2s.
Well, technically speaking, we only need 2. We
Yeah.
only need 2 because nevertheless is a transition. And when we think about transitions, right? Transitions begin new sentences. They don't. So we need a capital letter and a comma. So we put a capital letter after when we start with nevertheless. We put a comma after full transition, and then we put another comma because we're connecting a dependent and independent clause. Right? It's a little bit tricky, but in any case, these are formal rules. These are formal rules. And if you learn about these rules for transitions and subordinations, you will be all right. You'll be able to learn these. And these are rules. And again, with grammar, sometimes when you think about grammar, it can be quite tricky. But with punctuation, this is a system of rules. Once you learn it, it's like riding a bicycle. You'll be able to use it always. Okay. Are there any
Great.
questions, guys?
Questions? No. So I think we're able to continue on.
So what I want to do now is actually take a look at some of the most common problems that students have in grammar. And so I want to take a look at some of these most common problems. I'm going to try to address as many as I possibly can. But many of these common problems really basically relate to punctuation. So take a look at these 3 sentences. After work, I drink a beer. After finishing work, I drink a beer. After I finished work, I drank a beer. Are all of these 3 sentences correct?
All you need to put is yes or no.
What do you guys think? Are all of these 3 sentences correct?
On my behalf, I'm saying yes, and we have Sanjeev. He's saying yes too. So good. I'm not alone.
Okay. Okay.
Oh yes,
Good.
we got
All
a
of these
few
3
yeses.
sentences
Yes,
are
we got a lot of
absolutely
yes.
correct. Yes, all
Woohoo!
of these 3 sentences are correct. And what kind of word is after in these 3 sentences? Is it a transition or a subordinate?
Let's see if we have any responses.
T's or
Trans
S? Is it a transition or a subordinate?
We have a few subordinate. We got some transitions coming.
Okay. All right. This is a little bit of a tricky question, but in these 3 sentences, in all of these 3 sentences, after is a subordinate. And you can hear it in the melody. After work, right? After finishing work, yes, it's not finished, right? And again, you can start with a subordinate. You can put the subordinate in the middle. What we can see here is some subordinates can go with a noun, like
And
after,
if we
after
remember,
work.
subordinates are not complete sentences.
No, they're not, but they create
Mhm.
complex sentences, right? They create
That's
different clauses. So with work, after breakfast, after dinner, some subordinates can go with a noun. Some subordinates can also go with a gerund. And a gerund is an ing verb that also looks like a noun. After finishing work, after completing my homework, after learning about subordinates. And we can use subordinates with a full sentence. After I finished work, after I had breakfast. Right? So some subordinates can go with nouns, gerunds, and full sentences. And some subordinates can also work like this. Take a look at this. I finished work, period. After, comma, I drank a beer. Now, is after a subordinate or transition in this sentence?
See if we get any
we got a capital letter and a comma. It can't be anything but a transition.
Transition, yeah.
And in the second sentence, I finished work after I drank a beer. That's a subordination, right?
Yeah,
So
most people wrote down transition for the I finished work after I drank a beer. So that was great.
My question is, so basically, some subordinates can go with noun, gerunds, and full sentences, and some subordinates can also work as transitions. Before and after can be subordinates and transitions. Now, my question is the last two sentences, I finished work, period, after, comma, I drank a beer, I finished work after I drank a beer. Do these two sentences mean the same thing? And one sentence after is a transition, the other one is subordinate. But do these sentences mean the same thing? The last two sentences, that is.
No. We've got no's.
We got lots of notes. Very good. We can see the meaning is opposite, right?
Yeah.
I finished work first, and then I drink a beer. But if I use after a subordinate, I did not finish my beer before I finished work, right? So the meaning can be absolutely opposite. This is why it's so important to use proper punctuation, right? As I mentioned there, though, some subordinates can go with nouns, gerunds, and full sentences, and some subordinates can also be transitions. But the problem is some subordinates cannot. I'll give you an example. Because I was hungry, I ate a sandwich. Due to hunger, I ate a sandwich. Now, both these sentences are correct, and both of these sentences mean the same thing. Right? And these are subordinations. Because and due to are subordinations. You can start with because and due to. You can put because and due to in the middle. But if you take a look very carefully, after because, we have a full sentence. Because I was hungry. And after due to, we just put a noun. Now, can I say due to I was hungry, I ate a sandwich? No. Anybody?
No.
Can I say because hunger, I ate a sandwich?
No.
No.
No as well.
Can I use because, comma, due to, comma? Can I use because, due to like a transition to start a new sentence? Absolutely not. Right? So this is confusing because some subordinates in like after and before can go with a noun, gerunds, and full sentence, and after and before can also be transitions. But because and due to cannot. Just like although and despite. Although can only go with a full sentence. Despite can only go with a noun. So that's really a problem because some subordinates can go with nouns, gerunds, and full sentence. Some subordinates can also be transitions, but many subordinates cannot. Many subordinates can only be subordinates, and some subordinates can only go with a full sentence. Some can go only with a noun. So you need to be careful. Okay, any questions here? I'm going to go straight into C and ask a much. Oh yeah, a question. Yes.
No. There are no questions. I'm just looking at the response.
I'm just flying ahead with a lot of content, but I'm going to ask you guys one comprehension question here. Here we have 6 more sentences. We have although, even though, and whereas. They're all subordinations. My question is, which sentences are not correct? And you could just put the numbers in the chat. I'll give you a hint.
So just take a minute to read the sentences and then just give us the number, which ones you think are not correct.
I'll give you guys even a better hint. Only 2 of these are incorrect. That's a doozy. And again, this is really a problem because when you look at these subordinations, it's sometimes not about punctuation, it's about context. I'm not sure we're going to get too many answers today. Some of you guys are dedicated grammarians. So let's see if you guys can just wing it. See if you guys can be brave and guess which 2 of these sentences are incorrect. Maybe you can just pick up 1 or 2. Oh, I'm getting 4.
4.
We got a 4. 4.
We have a 3.
We got a 3.
Mhm.
One more second here, as we have other things I will take a look
We have a
at.
6.
We have a 6.
Mm-hmm.
We have a 2.
Yep.
We are all over the place.
We're all over right now.
We're gonna get all over the place, but surprise, ta-da! 3 and 5 are incorrect. Only 3 and 5. So congratulations to whoever wrote number 3. That's true, absolutely. But the other sentences are correct. Now, as you can take a look, although, even though, and whereas are subordinations. So we can start with a subordinate. You can put these subordinates in the middle with no punctuation, but punctuation is not the problem in these sentences. The issue here is about context, because these subordinates mean something very different. Yes, all of these talk about contrast, right? They have a meaning of contrast, where we're showing a difference between two different contrasting ideas. But you see, with although, we can use although for any contrast. Okay, I can say, although Anna is a girl, I am a boy. That's it, any contrast, any sort of difference. However, we can use even though only for surprising contrasts, right? So if I'd say, even though Anna is a girl, I'm a boy, would that make sense for you, Anna?
No,
No,
it's
right?
not a surprise.
It's not surprising that you're a girl, even though I'm a boy, right? It wouldn't be. And in this sentence, it's not surprising that Brazil is hot, even though Canada is cold, right? Has no meaning whatsoever, although it would be correct in this because it's any contrast. And if I'm thinking you're probably wanting to know what whereas is at, maybe you're guessing. Again, it's also context, but for whereas, it's the opposite contrast. Okay? So, for example, could I say, Anna, even though Anna likes red, I like blue. Would that be correct, Anna? Even though Anna likes red, I like blue.
Is it opposites?
It wouldn't be opposite. Red and blue wouldn't be opposite. But what if, for example, I could say, even though whereas Anna likes cold weather, I like hot weather, right? Or whereas Anna is from the north, I'm from the south. Okay? Whereas is specifically only for opposite contrast. Right? So it's very, very tricky now, isn't it? So sometimes subordinates, it's not just the punctuation, it's also the context. And again, you have to just memorize what those 3 subordinates mean. And they're very, very common subordinations. And again, being more precise in how you're using these subordinates in your writing, when you're using whereas to show an opposite contrast instead of just using although, or just using even though to show a contrast instead of just using although to show a contrast because it's surprising, that would also give you higher marks in CELPIP because you're more precise in your readability at this point.
I think one of the points here, and it's very important to mention, is that when you're using any type of either subordinates or conjunctions, when you're using it, just be sure you are using it correctly. Because sometimes people will just memorize words or phrases, but they're not too sure how to use it. And this is such a perfect example of how you're using it and if you're using it in the correct context. So if you do use it, just make sure you're confident that you're using it correctly as well. So that's very good.
Absolutely, and there are no shortcuts here. So if you're just memorizing a list of random transitions and subordinates that you don't know how to use, and you're just peppering in those subordinates and transitions in your writing just because you're hoping to get a higher score, chances are you'll make mistakes with them, and you won't. The effect will be the opposite, right? So it's very important to know them. So although, even though, whereas are very common subordinates, and so is while and when. Okay, next question here. Here we have 4 sentences with while and when. Take a look, guys. Which of these would you consider to be incorrect? Are there any ones that you would consider to be incorrect? Or are they all correct? Are they all correct? Are they some of them incorrect? If you think some of these are incorrect, which number would be incorrect?
I'm glad people are taking their time to read it.
Oh, look at this.
We
Someone
have
just said
all
all
correct.
correct. We have all correct. You know what? Someone's I believe it's Sinjev. Sinjeev. You guys,
Yeah.
you're the brave one, and you are absolutely correct. You're brave and you're absolutely correct.
Yay.
All of these all these sentences are correct. And here we're using while, right? We're using while and we're using when. And my other question is, do all of these sentences mean the same thing?
Good, we got a no. We
Oh,
got a few no's actually.
a few knows. Well, the answer is yes. They all mean the same thing. All sentences mean the same thing. So let's take a look. What do these sentences mean? Well, first of all, let's take a look at the verb tenses. So first of all, we say it says while I was walking. Now, was walking, was this long or short? Anybody? Is this long or short? Was walking. Is this event long or short?
We have a short, we've got two longs,
It's
and
long. It's long. Next question. Are they finished? Are these, was walking, is this event finished?
okay, so we have no.
Yes, it's finished. This is actually past progressive. It's not while I am walking, because if I said I am walking now, but this is was walking or were walking. This is past progressive. So this is long, but it's finished. This is in the past. It's past progressive. And for the second phrase, we see the word bought, right? Is this long or short?
We've got short.
Good. It is short. Is it finished?
We have yes, yes,
Good.
finished.
Now, what happened first? The walking or the buying?
We have yes,
Walking
walking
first. Very
first.
good.
Good.
What? My question is what? So walking was first. What finished last? What finished last?
We have walking.
Walking
Do we
is
have
the
somebody?
correct answer. Absolutely. I'm just moving ahead here so I can cover as much as I can. But absolutely. So we usually, when we talk about past events, we just use simple past. I watched a movie. It was 3 hours, but I watched a movie. I wouldn't say, oh, I was watching a movie last night. Yesterday I was walking, right? We usually just use simple past when we talk about past events, but we use past event, we use past progressive to show that there's a short event inside of a longer event. So while I was walking, I bought a coffee and then I continued to walk to work, right? And again, just a quick question here. I guess you can see what's the difference between while and when. And so just a quick here, we use while in front of past progressive or long events, and we use when in front of short events. So remember, if you're going to use while, make sure that you're using while in front of a long event, even if you're joining two long events which are happening at the same time. But as you're using while, and this is going to really frustrate you, this is the last part I'm going to talk about. When you're using while, sometimes you don't need to use a full sentence. You can just use a gerund. So this is the last slide I'm going to talk to here about common mistakes, but this is a doozy. This is the hardest one we've had. So take a look at these guys, and some of you are going to hate me at this point. take a look at these sentences. Are both of these sentences correct?
We have a few no's coming.
Yeah, quite a few no's there. Okay.
Yeah, majority
well,
say no, few yes.
They're both correct. Both of these sentences are correct. 2, do these sentences mean the same thing?
We have yes coming through. Yes again. Yeah, majority are saying yes.
Majority of yes, but the answer is no. Mean the same thing. Well, first of all, I'm going to ask you a question. In both of these sentences, who's walking? Who's walking? So in the first sentence, while walking to work, I spilled coffee in my shirt. Who's walking?
Somebody put I.
Anybody else? Who's walking? Is it I? Is it I? Yes, it's in fact I. That's very good. In the second sentence, who's walking?
We've got my coffee here. Yep.
Really?
My coffee's walking.
Right in my walk. And that is absolutely correct. Good job. Good job, guys. Absolutely. That's right. It's my coffee. And you find that surprising, but when you take a look at while, right? We can see while walking to work, there's a missing subject, right? There is a missing subject. Where is the missing subject? The missing subject is the subject of the next sentence. And this is a rule in English grammar. So sometimes it's all about order, putting things in the right order, right? So remember, if you start a sentence with a subordination and a gerund, there's a missing subject. The missing subject is always, as a rule, the subject of the next sentence. So it's all about the order of your sentence structure. And just last little side note, just to tease you here, take a look at the sentence. I have a computer in my father's house, which is very fast. In the sentence, what is fast?
We've got a few I's. Some people put a computer. We have one person that put my father.
The answer is my father's house. My father's house is very fast. Maybe they're living in an RV or something like this. But here's the point. The rule is which always follows the subject it modifies. Right? And so that is the rule here. And if I can get you back out here, Anna, so you can see your camera back here again. Basically, so when we think about these are, so I just spent a little bit of time outlining some of the simplest, some of the most common mistakes that we have, but many of these common mistakes really relate to punctuation. So at this point, I just want to go ahead and just start our Q&A question, because we did an hour worth of our presentation. So I was just wondering, let's just get to the audience here. Let's do a little bit of Q&A for about 10 minutes or so, and just get some of you guys to ask any questions that you have. These can be related to grammar, to anything that we saw today, or any other examples that we looked through, any rules that you guys didn't understand, or just anything.
Or if you have any questions about CELPIP, about the test, about registration, just let us know. You will notice that you also do have 2 handouts. So you need to click on it and just download it. But there are 2 handouts. One, Achay will talk about, which is the preparation courses that he offers, and the other one is the CELPIP score or level descriptors. So you could see what raters are looking for when you are responding to these type of questions. So it's very useful for you to understand the scoring system as well. And can you tell us before we get into the questions, a little bit about your preparation course, Vijay?
Yeah, absolutely. I can do that. So basically, I just want to mention that if you enjoyed today's presentation, you would like to see it again, and if you missed some of our other presentations on writing, listening, and speaking, I think the speaking and the writing are especially good because they really talk about a lot of these different techniques and strategies on how to pass CELPIP. Just check me out on YouTube. Just check Summerhill Online Academy on YouTube and subscribe. And again, we do provide private and group classes for our CELPIP program. If you're interested in private or group classes for CELPIP preparation, you can just contact us at summerhillonlineacademy.com and fill out the course inquiry form, and I'll get back to you. And again, if you want to contact Anna for any CELPIP related questions, you can you can email her at info@celpip.ca. We do have a course coming up on May 3rd. And so this is our group separate preparation course. It's an excellent course. This is why I think it's a great course because, Paragon obviously loves us and likes what we were doing in terms of this program. You can book a free consultation with me just by filling out the course inquiry form, and we can book a live consultation, and I can explain more about the program for you and see if it's a good fit. And I can also provide a free diagnostic session to see what your level is approximately and what would be the best program for you. But this is actually a 4-week, 40-hour program. It's a small class. It's a live class. So these are not a series of pre-recorded videos with multiple choice questions. There's a professional CELPIP trained, Paragon trained CELPIP instructor teaching a maximum of 9 students per instructor. So the classes are capped at a maximum of 9 students per class, so that the teacher can really integrate the class in a very communicative way. So there's a lot of places a lot of opportunities to ask questions, to get feedback on your writing and speaking, to work with other students, and to ask questions on from your teacher. There's homework on a daily basis, and again, these are excellent classes, and our next class begins on May 3rd. Our classes usually start at the beginning of each month, every single month. So if you're interested about this course, you can, again, fill out the inquiry form, book a free consultation, and I'd be happy to answer any of your questions about our CELPIP programs and how it might be able to help you. So just going back to the Q&A, do we have any questions at this point?
Yes, we do. There's a question here. It says, are there other things I should focus on for the writing?
Absolutely. So
what tips would you give people?
So basically, when we think about standardized language proficiency examinations like IELTS, TOEFL, CELPIP, they have very specific expectations. We can call this task achievement or fulfilling the tasks of the question. And one of the biggest problems is that students, even if they have really good English grammar and good vocabulary, sometimes they're not reading the question entirely or not answering every part of the question or not answering every part of the question with the same focus. So again, if you're interested about writing, I do recommend that you hammer through this 1-hour-long CELPIP writing workshop that's available on YouTube that I posted. And it really is focusing on task achievement and things that you need to achieve in order to get a high band in CELPIP. So one of the things that we learn in our preparation program is task 2 and how to write a good thesis statement that helps to shorten your sentence, you shorten the preparation time for your response. And again, how to develop your tone for writing task 1. So there are many, many expectations. So I hope you can watch that video and have you can have a more insight about writing task 2. And after watching the video, if you still have some questions, you can go ahead and book a free one-on-one session consultation with me over Zoom, and we can go along and go through writing, and I can give you some more tips about your writing as well. Okay. Any
I
other
think
questions?
some of the questions you've already mentioned, but do you have videos of other sections? If so, where can I go?
Yeah, absolutely. Just go to YouTube and search summerhillonlineacademy.com. Hit subscribe to keep tuned in to our newest workshops. Anna and I do these workshops all the time. We actually have a new workshop for Kale on April 27th, I believe. So
Next
there's going to
week,
be an
yes.
info session for Kale. That's the first one we do in Kale, but we usually do a different session every single month. Again, it takes me a little time to prepare for these ones, but yeah, there's usually one video posted every single month. So the library is growing on my YouTube channel, so you can take a look and watch more of these videos for free. Okay.
Great. So we do have some questions about your class. The first one
Okay.
is the class online?
Absolutely. As you guys know, this is COVID, we're in restrictions, but I mean, regardless of whether we're under lockdown or not, Summerhill Online Academy has always offered online courses. We use the platform Zoom. We really like Zoom. It's a very nice interactive classroom environment. Again, all the materials are digital, the classes are digital. Some of you might be put off by the idea that it's online instead of in person. To be quite honest, since I started teaching online, I find it much more useful, especially when you're preparing CELPIP, because a lot of the interactions that you have with the actual CELPIP materials are online. So when you're doing the test, you're sitting in front of a computer and seeing slides. So in an online environment, it just seems to make a lot of sense. It actually works quite well for us. So it is a fully online course, so you will be safe. And yeah, but it is very interactive. These are small classes, so it's and again, it's from 6 to 8 p.m. It's 2 hours a day, Monday to Friday, 10 hours a day for 4 weeks straight. It's very intensive. You learn a lot very quickly, and you get to network not only with the teacher but with your other fellow classmates, which as CELPIP takers are very serious and dedicated and goal oriented. So
And
it's a good way of meeting other people as well.
I always feel that you end up learning more from your peers than you do usually just from the actual class itself. I mean, obviously you're going to get a lot of rich information, but usually with among peers, you learn a lot from each other as well.
Yeah, I think so too. You learn from other people's mistakes, and when the teacher corrects the student, you learn from mistakes, and we
Yeah.
all make mistakes. So learning from your mistakes through other people's mistakes, other approaches, and again, our course is based on strategies and approaches on how to beat CELPIP with a variety of different strategies. But it's always very interesting to see other students bring their own perspective, their own strategies, and introducing them to the class, because not everybody brain works the same way, right?
Yeah.
I'm a little short on time here, so any final questions here?
Um, and this still about the course. How do I know if I need to prepare?
So best two methods I would say would be a good idea. First of all, you should get a CELPIP.ca account. So just get a CELPIP.ca account. You will need it to register for your CELPIP course. But once you get a CELPIP.ca account, you get 2 free versions of mock tests. Now, obviously, you're not going to get any feedback from your speaking and from your writing, but you still get the idea of how it works. But you do get feedback from your CELPIP listening and reading scores. So those 2 mock tests will give you a score, and that score you can see how did I do. I would like to just point out, do it twice. Don't just do one version of the mock test. Do the first round just to see how you're doing, and then do the second one just to see how you do after you've had a little bit of understanding on how the actual structure of the test works. But that should give you some indication on how to do on your listening and reading. And again, you can book a free 30-minute consultation, and I can give you a personalized feedback on your speaking and your writing, and that will give you a much better idea about what level you might be hitting at this point, how much if you even need any CELPIP preparation at all, and if you do, how much and how long it would take. But generally speaking, if you're hitting a band 6, with my program, if you're hitting about a band 6 and you're entering my program about band 6, after 4 weeks, you should be hitting a band 7 at that point, which is what we need for as the minimum for permanent residency applications, especially for express or entry visas. Band 5 is a little bit more difficult. Jumping from band 5 to band 7 would take a lot more time. I'd say probably about 2 months of continuous and intensive studies, but because there's a huge jump between band 5 and 7. But if you're hitting something around a band 6, it is quite possible for you to be hitting band 7 after 4 weeks of intensive study and learning appropriate strategies.
Great.
Any other
and
questions,
I think
guys?
we have one last question. What is the cost for private classes?
So private classes are $60 an hour or $120 per each session. Then the advantage of the private courses, of private lessons, of course, it's very flexible schedules. So sometimes you can have 2 or 3 sessions per week, and you can have those sessions at times which are convenient to you, especially if you're working late nights or you're just. But for private lessons, you do need, for both private and group lessons, you do need to have an access to a computer. You can't just do the lessons through phone. We do a lot of interactive studies. And again, for private lessons, I usually recommend that I would say that the group course is far more cost effective because you learn a lot of strategies. But sometimes I find that after the 4-week course, students find that they're doing fine, but they're still having some issues with one aspect of CELPIP, whether it's just the writing portion, or they're still having problems with their listening, and that's when a one-on-ones private session would really work, because we would be able to really address your grammar issues, your particular language issues, or even if it's helping you find the right strategy to get the score that you need. So private lessons are always available. They're available at flexible hours. They're $120 per 2-hour sessions, or $60 an hour.
Great, fantastic. Yeah, it looks like we're good for questions right now. So again, if you have any questions, just let us know. Take advantage right now.
Yeah, and again, yeah, if you have any questions, go ahead and take advantage. But if you don't have any questions right now, you watch any of my videos and any of my sessions, and you have any future questions, don't hesitate. Go to summerhillonlineacademy.com, register for a program inquiry. I'd be happy to book a free consultation and help you out and see if any of our programs work for you.
And as I mentioned at the beginning, you will be receiving a recording of this video as well as information if you need to talk to Maciej or with me. We will make sure to send you the links and all the website information about prep program, or just if you want to see the videos, all that information will be given to you. And there will also be a quick survey afterwards, like once you log out, you'll see that a survey will pop out if you could just help us out, because we're always hoping to better understand what your needs are and improving every time we are here together.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And if you have any recommendations about what you would like to learn next for our next month's workshop, comment in the on YouTube when you're watching, or send me send me an email. Tell me what you would like to see. And again, I'd love to be able to produce content that the audience is looking for. So things that you are interested in personally, whether it, and sometimes from an instructor's perspective, you do try to empathize and try to understand what students are looking for. And again, this particular session, I thought it was very useful session, because we're looking at aspects that are which raters are looking for specifically. But as a student, if you have some issues, if you had some problems with a particular issue with any of those parts of CELPIP, whether it's listening, reading, speaking, and writing, do let me know, and I'd be happy to produce the next session that focuses on something that you as an audience are looking for.
Yes, and thank you for participating. You have been a great audience. And thank you once again, Maciej, for inviting me. I always look forward to these presentations, and hopefully we'll be able to do something new soon, which we are next week, Kale, but always looking forward to the presentations.
And it's always nice to have you here, and I'm looking forward to hosting you on April 27th for the Kale. I believe, and I believe Patrick is joining us too, right? For next,
He might be. He might be. Yes.
he might be
We'll see if he's available.
available.
Patrick is another colleague of mine who's usually in these presentations as well, but he was doing a different presentation today. But so I was all alone, but that's okay.
Okay. Well, in any case, thank you very much, guys,
Yeah.
for joining us. I hope you guys learned something new. And again, if you have any final questions, say now or email
Let
them
us
to
know
me
later on, which
later.
is fine too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right,
Well,
guys.
it's been amazing. Enjoy your night, and thank you once again for joining in today.
Okay. Okay. Goodbye, everybody.
Take care. Bye, everyone.